All right, I have a few minutes and I want to read the section on the precocious child in King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. That is part of chapter 3, I think. Let's just confirm that. Yes, chapter 3 on boy psychology. The precocious child. There is a wonderful statuette of the ancient Egyptian magician and vizier Imhotep as a boy. Imhotep is sitting on a little throne reading a scroll. His face is gentle and thoughtful, but alive with an inner glow. His eyes look down at the written word that he holds reverently in his hands. His posture shows grace, poise, concentration, and self-confidence. Not a true portrait, this statuette is really an image of the archetype of the precocious child. The precocious child manifests in a boy when he is eager to learn, when his mind is quickened, when he wants to share what he is learning with others. There's a glint in his eye and an energy of body and mind that shows he is adventuring in the world of ideas. This boy, and later the man, wants to know the why of everything. He asks his parents, why is the sky blue? Why do the leaves fall? Why do things have to die? He wants to know the how of things, the what and the where. He often learns to read at an early age so that he can answer his own questions. He's usually a good student and an eager participant in class discussions. Often this boy is also talented in one or more areas. He may be able to draw and paint well, or play a musical instrument with proficiency. He may also be good at sports. The precocious child is the source of so-called child prodigies. The precocious child is the origin of our curiosity and our adventurous impulses. He urges us to be explorers and pioneers of the unknown, the strange and the mysterious. He causes us to wonder at the world around us and the world inside us. A boy for whom the precocious child is a powerful influence wants to know what makes other people tick, as well as what makes himself tick. He wants to know why people act the way they do, why he has the feelings he has. He tends to be introverted and reflective, and he is able to see the hidden connections in things. He can achieve cognitive detachment from the people around him long before his peers are able to accomplish this. Though introverted and reflective, he is also extroverted and eagerly reaches out to others to share his insights and his talents with them. He often experiences a powerful urge to help others with his knowledge. And his friends often come to him for a shoulder to cry on, as well as for help with their schoolwork. The precocious child in a man keeps his sense of wonder and curiosity alive, stimulates his intellect, and moves him in the direction of the mature magician. The Know-It-All-Trickster. The bipolar shadow of the precocious child, like all the shadow forms of the archetypes of the immature masculine, can be carried over into adulthood, where it causes would-be men to manifest inappropriate infantilism in their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The know-it-all-trickster is, as the name implies, that immature masculine energy that plays tricks of a more or less serious nature in one's own life and on others. He is expert at creating appearances and then selling us on those appearances. He seduces people into believing him, and then he pulls the rug out from under them. He gets us to believe in him, to trust him, and then he betrays us and laughs at our misery. He leads us to a paradise in the jungle only to serve us a feast of cyanide. He's always looking for a sucker. He is the practical joker, adept at making fools of us. He is a manipulator. The know-it-all is that aspect of the trickster in a boy or a man that enjoys intimidating others. The boy or man under the power of the know-it-all shoots off his mouth a lot. He's always got his hand up in class, not because he wants to participate in the discussion, but because he wants his classmates to understand that he is more intelligent than they are. He wants to trick them into believing that, compared to him, they are dolts. The boy possessed by the know-it-all does not necessarily limit his exaggerated precociousness to intellectual showmanship. He may be a know-it-all about any subject or activity. A boy from a wealthy English family came to the United States one summer to spend a month in a YMCA camp. He spent much of his time telling the other boys, whom he called plebes, all about his many travels in Europe and Asia with his diplomat father. When the other boys asked about the details of this or that foreign city, the English boy would respond with, "You stupid Americans, the only thing you know about is your cornfields." And he performed his "I'm superior to you" show in a British upper crust accent. Needless to say, the American boys felt ashamed and angry. The boy or man under the power of the know-it-all makes many enemies. He is verbally abusive of others, whom he regards as his inferiors. As a result, in grade school, he can often be found on the bottom of a pile of angry boys who are whacking away at him. He comes away from these encounters with black eyes, but with a defiant conviction of his own superiority. In one extreme case that we know of, the know-it-all boy came to believe that he was the second coming of Jesus Christ. The only thing he couldn't figure out was why no one seemed to recognize him. The know-it-all man, who is still possessed by this infantile shadow form of the precocious child, wears his superiority in his suspenders and in his business suits, carries it in his briefcase, and displays it in his "I'm too busy and too important to talk with you now" attitude. He's characteristically smug and often wears a cocky grin. He frequently dominates conversations, turning friendly discussions into lectures and arguments into diatribes. He depreciates those who don't know what he knows or who hold opinions that differ from his. Because the trickster is the umbrella complex under which the know-it-all operates, the man caught in this infantile influence is usually deceiving others, and perhaps himself as well, about the depth of his knowledge or the level of his importance. But he also has a positive side. He's very good at deflating egos, our own and those of others. And often we need deflating. He can spot in an instant when and in exactly what way we are inflated and identified with our grandiosity. And he goes for it, in order to reduce us to human size and expose us to all of our frailties. This was the role of the fool in the king's courts of medieval Europe. When everyone else at great ceremony was adoring the king, and the king himself was beginning to adore the king, the fool would caper into the middle of the ceremonies and fart. He was saying, "Don't get inflated. All of us here are only human beings, no matter what status we accord each other." Jesus in the Bible calls Satan the father of lies, thus identifying Satan with the trickster in his negative aspect. However, in a roundabout way, the Bible also shows Satan, the trickster, in a positive light, though most of us have probably missed this. The story of Job, for instance, depicts a relationship of mutual respect between Job and God. God has given Job great wealth and material security, health, and a large family. Job, for his part, ceaselessly praises God. It's a mutual admiration society. Then in comes Satan, sniffing out the hypocrisy in the whole thing. He's a troublemaker for the sake of truth. His idea is that if God curses Job, Job will eventually stop singing the Lord's praises. God doesn't want to believe Satan, but he goes along with the plan, probably instinctively knowing that Satan is right, and he is. Once God has taken away everything Job had, his family, his wealth, his health, Job finally throws off his superficial piety, shakes his fist at God, and rips him up one side and down the other. God responds by intimidating Job. Even in the story of the Garden of Eden, Satan makes trouble for the sake of exposing the fraudulent and delusional nature of the supposedly good creation. God wanted to believe that everything he had made was good, but then, after all, he had made evil and hung it on the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Satan, in the form of a serpent, was determined to expose the shadow side of this all-good creation. He succeeded through the fall of Adam and Eve. only after Satan had exposed the evil in creation and by implication in the Creator could honesty and healing begin. The young gang members in West Side Story, who in a clowning and tricksterish way try to make excuses for themselves and their destructive behavior to their mock-up, Officer Krupke, are actually and quite accurately exposing the shadow side, the less than idyllic side, of the society that made them what they are. How does the trickster work? Let's say you are preparing to give what you regard as the most brilliant presentation of your life. You're so proud of your special insights. You sit down at the computer and order it to print out the notes you had put into it earlier, and the printer doesn't work. Your own inner trickster has tricked you. Or you're going to make an appearance at an important function. You're timing it so that you know everyone will be waiting for you. Just for a few minutes, just long enough for them to realize how important you are. You go to the car at last, preparing to make your triumphal journey, and you can't find your keys. There they are, locked in the car, still in the ignition. Hubris leads to nemesis. This is how the trickster works against, in the long run perhaps for, us. But he works through us, against others too. Maybe you're the practical joker, mercilessly hounding others with your pranks until someone does you one better and you are forced to realize how much it hurts. You're the car salesman who cheats your customers on the true markup of the car, and then management cheats you on your commission. We once knew a graduate student who was really possessed by this aspect of the archetype. He couldn't stop exposing others' weaknesses through his charming and not so charming humor at their expense. He laughed at his professor's blunders in the classroom. He laughed when the president of the school stumbled over his words. He himself had political aspirations, hoping to create a student movement for his favorite cause. But he alienated the very people he needed as supporters and mentors. His tricksterish behavior finally isolated him and left him powerless. It was only afterward in therapy, when he had made himself familiar with the possessing force of this archetype by studying Native American portrayals of the trickster, that he was able to free himself of his compulsive and self-destructive behavior. Perhaps the most familiar trickster is in the Bible, in the story of Jacob and Esau, and how Jacob got Esau's birthright through selling him a bowl of soup. Jacob tricked his older brother into giving up all his rightful status and wealth as the heir to their father's fortune. Through manipulation, he took what was not his. We need to clearly understand this immature energy. Though its purpose in its positive mode seems to be to expose lies, if it is left unchecked, it moves into its negative side and becomes destructive of oneself and others. For the negative side of this immature masculine energy is really hostile and deprecating of all the real effort, all the rights, and all the beauty of others. The trickster, like the high-chair tyrant, does not want to do anything himself. He does not want to honestly earn anything. He just wants to be, and to be what he has no right to be. He is, in psychological language, passive-aggressive. This is the energy form that seeks the fall of great men, that delights in the destruction of a man of importance. But the trickster does not want to replace the man who has fallen. He does not want to take up that man's responsibilities. In fact, he doesn't want any responsibilities. He wants to do just enough to wreck things for others. The trickster causes a boy or a boyish man to have an authority problem. Such a boy or man can always find a man to hate him and eventually shoot him down. He will readily believe that all men in power are corrupt and abusive. But like the man possessed by the weakling prince, he is condemned forever to be on the outskirts of life, never able to take responsibility for himself or his actions. His energy comes from envy. The less a man is in touch with his true talents and abilities, the more he will envy others. If we envy a lot, we are denying our own realistic greatness, our own divine child. What we need to do then is to get in touch with our own specialness, our own beauty, and our own creativity, Envy blocks creativity. The trickster is the archetype that rushes in to fill the vacuum in the immature man or boy left by the boy's denial of and lack of connection with the divine child. The trickster gets activated developmentally within us when we have been deprecated and attacked by our parents or older siblings, when we have been emotionally abused. If we don't feel our real specialness, we will come under the power of the trickster, the know-it-all, and deflate others' sense of their specialness, even when such deflation is not called for. The know-it-all trickster has no heroes, because to have heroes is to admire others. We can only admire others if we have a sense of our own worthiness and a developing sense of security about our own creative energies. The dummy. The boy or man who is under the power of the other pole of the dysfunctional shadow of the precocious child, the naive dummy, like the weakling prince, lacks personality, vigor, and creativity. He seems unresponsive and dull. He can't seem to learn his multiplication tables, count change, or tell time. He is frequently labeled a slow learner. In addition, he lacks a sense of humor and frequently seems to miss the point of jokes. He may appear to be physically inept as well. His coordination is off, so he often becomes the butt of ridicule and contempt when he fumbles the ball on the playing field or strikes out in the last of the ninth. This boy may also appear to be naive. He is, or seems to be, the last kid on the block to learn about the birds and the bees. The dummy's ineptitude, however, is frequently less than honest. He may grasp far more than he shows, and his dunce-like behavior may mask a hidden grandiosity that feels itself too important as well as too vulnerable to come into the world. Thus, intimately intertwined with a secret know-it-all, the dummy is also a trickster. That ends the section on the precocious child, and next time we will be reading the Oedipal child. Thanks for joining.